So I actually tried the Holobox by HoloConnect. So
You tried it?
Yes. Well,
You have a video of yourself.
Exactly. So yeah, there was a device when you could actually do an hologram of yourself. So I've got plenty of fun videos of my friends there. But it was really nice. It really looks like you, I think we are really evolving in the quality of those holograms. And that solution made me think of you guys, because we've talked about holograms several times in the show already.
Welcome to the Healthusiasm podcast, panel discussions on innovations in health and self-care. My name is Christophe Jauquet. I'm a health business expert, author, and keynote speaker. Every week, I discuss with a panel of experts the positive changes that are shaping our health and happiness. And for this discussion, we have two of your beloved experts in the panel. Calling in from Barcelona is our digital health connector, Aline Noizet.
Hola.
From Ghent, Belgium, human experience expert, Zouina.
Hello there.
Hey, that means that we are missing from Scotland, but living in Brighton, Dr. Keith Grimes, and from Colombia, but living in Berlin, Nia Escobar Kulle. How are we doing, guys?
Very good.
Very good. It's starting to get, we're going towards springtime, which is always a nice and warmer, sunnier type of days in Belgium, at least. So always makes me happy.
Well, it's been very rainy in Barcelona. I think you had more sun than us those past weeks, which is good. You know, we don't complain. We need rain, but yeah, it's a bit of a change.
Yeah,
for us.
You need rain. But it's good to hear that we're all here then. Well, in this week's episodes, we will be talking again about the healthusiasms of the past month, the month of February 2025. Some positive changes that we have seen in the past weeks and that we would like to share with our listeners. And I think, Aline, you were very excited about this healthusiasm that you wanted to share here. Not even Mo and myself, we know what you will be sharing because we don't share these healthusiasms up front. So tell us, what is the very good news or the very good healthusiasm that you want to share?
Exactly. So maybe I will do a short intro to that news. So this week was 4 years from now in Barcelona. So Mobile World Congress 4 years from now. A big conference here in Barcelona where the tech community comes together. And I had the pleasure of moderating a panel on Monday about bridging the gap for women's health. So we talked about gender health gap. And I was on stage with the CEOs of the Blue Box, Hormona, and Day. So we talked about Day in the last episode. So it was a very nice segue. So I invite everybody to tune to the last episode to learn more about Day. And one of the takeaways from that panel for me was really the importance to understand the woman's body better, because the body and physiology are different. And we need to understand those, and women also need to share what's happening to us. And this morning when I woke up, I was reading the news and I read this one that I'm very excited about. I think it's a great news for women's health. So let me share it with you. So a study has been done by researchers in Australia showing that bacterial vaginosis could be transmitted by men during intercourse. So bacterial vaginosis is due to an imbalanced vaginal microbiome, and it causes lots of discomfort for women. So when it appears or is detected, the woman is treated with antibiotics, but it often comes back a few months later. So it's a pain for women. So this study is actually a breakthrough because it shows that the infection could come from the penis microbiome and be transmitted during sex. So what they've been doing during that study, it's treating both partners at the same time when the woman had vaginosis, and it is showing reduction in infection and improvement in the cure. So I think it's great news for women, especially those suffering from recurring bacterial vaginosis. There may be an answer for them. And there could be a bigger impact because the link with the microbiome could actually help and have positive consequences on pregnancies, reducing preterm birth, for instance. But what I find interesting in that news, aside from the great news for women, is that when we talk about gender health and gender gap, like I've heard a lot about vaginal microbiome those past years, So there's several companies on the market doing tests and then offering supplements for women to improve the vaginal microbiome. But to be honest, I've never heard about perineal microbiome. So I think there's still gaps on both sides, right? Like women's health, but also men's health. And if we understand better men's health as well, it could help with women's health. So what do you think of my news?
I think it's wonderful. I think the term gender gap could also maybe be reinvented to gender synchronization or health synchronization. I don't know, because it's remarkable how we always think of health as an ecosystem, and these things have been remaining under the radar for years, and we haven't thought of just the ecosystem of all the influences a woman could be exposed to. And then, so I welcome the idea, and I think it's one of the greatest health enthusiasms because it could unlock so many insights. And also, I don't think the man is particularly fond of transmitting or maybe burdening his partner. And I think the insight of a man, knowing that, he needs to take responsibility and he's part of the equation of in some way. So I think that's a wonderful thing, also in terms of shared responsibility, but also shared potential of help, trying to make each other better. I think that's wonderful, Aline, and you rightfully so kept it a secret.
Yeah, and I fully agree with it. And it's a bit funny. I think in the beginning of my career, like 20 years ago, I was working in pharma and we had a couple of products specifically for in that area. And there was a lot of assumption on the fact that probably there is a ping pong going on between women and men. And I would say there's no use in treating women only, let's say. But there was no scientific proof to actually go to physicians and say, maybe you should treat your men as well. Because pharmaceutical companies cannot, recommend something that is not proven in that regard. But we always, like all the physicians within the company knew like this, there has to be ping pong going on and we should be able to say it, but we were not able to say it. So I really hope that this could be, I'm talking 20, 25 years back now. So it's almost painful that it took so long to realize that something which is almost childishly obvious that there could be this ping pong going on. So I think this is a good advancement. And it even reminds me a little bit of the frustration that I had back in the days in saying like, why can't we really talk about it when there is a good assumption and a good logic that this could happen, but there's no scientific proof yet. So yeah.
I have some experience in microbiome because I helped launch the first microbiome native skincare product. And I think it's a way forward, but the microbiome is also really complex because, for instance, the differences in my microbiome, if you take the microbiome on your shoulder or the microbiome on your penis, it's a world of difference because it is made to fulfill a certain function. I think it's a way forward. And I think it also, when I hear it, it helps me understand that maybe the treatments will be less invasive and work with our biology rather than against it. Yeah. So the reflex we have in microbiome is to nuke it, right? And kind of reset it. But the problem is when you reset it, it can grow in something you don't want. So maybe we need to work better with our microbiome and provide a completely different way of doing medicine and kind of boosting the biological system rather than nuking it. I think that insight is a second step. So not only how do we neutralize the entire microbiome, but how can we build upon it to make vaginosis come back less and also have the influence of the man be less important. So I know it's supposed to be a short health enthusiasm, but I wanted to chime into that.
Yeah, very good. And thank you, Aline. I love the way that you started this episode by continuing what you did last week with the Women's Only podcast. So if you haven't listened to it, there is an entire episode on women's health by a women's only panel. So good that we continue this conversation, and maybe we could continue this conversation even a little bit more, because I think, Mo, you have one on women's health as well, right?
Yeah, I have one on women's health. And, since we are living longer and longer, we see that some stages of our life might be dephased, right? Having children maybe later, being active later, having an active professional life later. And, with the Relief Clinic, we've been making some incredible progress on what we call ovarian rejuvenation. ovarian rejuvenation. We use that in two ways: for people suffering from menopause and the effects of menopause, but also for people suffering from fertility problems. I was very happy to hear that there's a research from Rice University team led by Anatoly Kolomeisky, because what I see a lot is that infertility is kind of a surprise. You're exposed to it, and nothing preempts you or prepares you for that. But also menopause, we know there's perimenopause and things like that. So you kind of go into that, but it's always something that takes you by surprise, right? So that team at Rice University developed a model predicting menopause timing by analyzing ovarian follicle aging. So they knew exactly, they can predict when you will go into menopause. And they use it by counting the initial number of follicles, the rate of depletion and things. And they could prepare you and maybe anticipate the effects rather than being confronted with it, being able to ease into it and preemptively prepare you for that. So I think the implications are interesting. The implications for fertility are interesting because our population, we need more younger people. We need new people. We need more births. So I think in terms of birth rates, that's also something you can anticipate. But also beyond fertility, when you see the side effects of menopause, when you look at fatigue, brain fog, skin health, musculoskeletal pains, if you're able to prepare for that, I think that's incredible. So I think integrating that into a comprehensive health management could also help us kind of preempt that. And I think that's a very hopeful perspective. And I hope the men will participate in that support too, of course. And that brings us to deferring the aging process and enhancing quality of life at all stages. I think being prepared for what is planned, I think also helps us maybe reduce the impact of whatever happens. So I was very, very hopeful for that and very thankful for the advances of Rice University.
I think it's a great news, Mo, because for women, it's perimenopause and menopause is a big black box. Like there's not really a rule. Like you can start, like I think the range is maybe around 10 years. So you don't know, and you start having symptoms, say, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's not.
Yeah.
So the mental aspect that you're mentioning, I think, yeah, if I can know and be prepared for that, it will help a lot. Yeah. So yeah, it's great news.
Yeah, we'll come back on menopause in one of the next episodes. Stay tuned for that. I'd like to stay with, the whole predicting you're talking about, having more precision about, when menopause is kicking in, and even about deferring aging process. But I want to do it in the fitness industry. So I'll take my health enthusiasm there. I think Technogym, they launched something new and they called it Healthness. It's not as good of a word of health enthusiasm, if you ask me, but it is a good try. What they say is that they're moving away from, fitness to wellness and now to healthness. This is their major shift that they want to do. And obviously for years, many experts have been saying that exercise is the ultimate magic pill because it improves your metabolism. It improves your hormones, might be valuable also in menopause, for example. It also improves your heart health and it slows aging. Now, we've been talking about AI for a couple of years now. And if you combine AI and science together with fitness, it can really make fitness way smarter. And so what Technogym now wants to do with this move from wellness to healthness is to really evolve into a preventative healthcare company or even in a longevity care company. So how does it work? They have, the assessments that they always do, but they include AI now in there. And the checkups is now really based on the real-time biometrics that they will analyze, the biometrics related to muscle strength, cardiovascular fitness, cognitive function even, to be able to tailor workouts to individual needs, which then can be used for, really precision training that is built with AI. So they have new tools, which they call the BioStrength and the BioCardio equipment, which automatically adjust resistance, intensity, and recovery based on the user's real-time performance. It's not the first company that does it, but what it really does is it really to, the millikilogram or whatever resistance that you can have, it adapts based on live feedback from your body, making sure that it can really optimize up to 30% versus traditional training. And the objective really of this approach is to move forward into, what we call longevity focused fitness. So instead of just building muscle or burning calories or working on your cardio, the training, it will now be designed to prevent diseases, boost heart health, and even influence gene expression. And so obviously they have a ton of data, and they're gathering more and more data, biometric data from millions of users that are using Technogym. But now with that, they're really trying to create this personalized health programs that might help into longevity by increasing what they say 30% more impact, even in the short run. I talked about medical gyms for a while. I think I wrote a newsletter about 2 years ago. It's even in my second book. And I think this is another great example of how, fitness is not just no longer fitness anymore. It's also no longer wellness anymore. It's really moving into this healthness that now Technogym, one of the big players, for those who don't even know Technogym, I didn't even introduce it maybe, but it's these devices these exercise tools that you see in gyms. So they're pretty much everywhere, but you can also buy them at home, obviously, to do some workouts there.
Depends on your budget. They're the Rolls Royce of fitness.
They're the Rolls Royce of fitness, yeah, indeed, definitely. But you can find them in many gyms around the world. So you definitely see the Technogym. And there's another one from the fitness world that I found really interesting that goes a bit in the same direction. And that is the CrossFit founder, Greg Glassman, is back. So in 2020, he did some, racism on social media platforms. He even was allegated with some sexual harassment. So not a guy that was really outranked, was even fired from CrossFit. He all denied these allegations, by the way, but still they were there. He's now making a comeback. Actually, the announcement was made already in December 2024. So this is not new, but I really like the idea and it aligns with what Technogym is doing. But Glassman had always believed, even when he was the CEO of CrossFit, that fitness is medicine, same as Technogym. Now, he was fired and his non-compete has expired. And so he is now ready to focus again on this field because he was a very strong believer in it. And he launched MedFix, which is MET, it's short for metabolic fix. And it's really something which is coming up. I mean, we talked about metabolic health in the second episode. That's 3 years ago, more than 3 years ago now. So it's been a focus within Health Enthusiasm for a while, but he's been really focusing on it now with his new solution, MedFix, which is said to be a revolutionary metabolic life-saving fitness method. Okay, well, it originates from something which he did on the site, which is called the Broken Science Initiative. It's a community of people that wants to focus more on health before healthcare. They believe that the whole science initiative is looking at things the wrong way, and he wants to put fitness at the front line of treatment. It's basically the same approach as what he tried to do with CrossFit, but with a more specific focus now on chronic diseases, or at trying to prevent chronic diseases with a more metabolic health approach. CrossFit style approach, apply it to food, apply it to metabolic health. And it starts now in 2025. It will soon roll out with a nutrition-focused education for coaches and gyms. So they will include nutrition into what gyms can do. What CrossFit did in the past, what he did with CrossFit in the past, and what CrossFit is still trying to do today a little bit. I don't know if are you aware of what CrossFit has done within healthcare and what they try to do, guys?
No.
No, it's because it's not the first time that they did it. So Glassman, when he was working at CrossFit, he already tried to persuade physicians to prescribe CrossFit as a treatment. It's a smart way of selling your product. But I think it's kind of makes sense, of course, making sure that people are more convinced about the necessity of exercising and try to replace prescription drugs with functional fitness. That was his vision. It didn't really, land the way that he wanted to, but he really made a big announcement about it. Now, even after Glassman left CrossFit, there were two other initiatives that I really liked a lot. And we talked about one of those in the podcast before. It was Precision Care. It's something that they launched, I think, in 2021. It's a concierge telehealth service. So basically, there were physicians that were trained in the CrossFit mentality, the whole scheming that they have. And what they try to do is, again, help CrossFit athletes get in touch with physicians to receive personalized healthcare and personalized advice. Worked reasonably well in certain parts of the States, but it didn't really grow into the massive scale that the CrossFit is. And so the concept was sold. It was not shut down. It was sold to another company specialized in telemonitoring and telehealth. So that was one thing that it did, precision care, to really try to mix again healthcare with fitness. And the other thing was the CrossFit Medical Society. I don't know if you heard about those. It's a membership-based organization for healthcare professionals. They really want to make sure that gyms become health homes, where exercise is again used as a primary tool to fight chronic disease. So even if Glassman was left the company or had to leave the company, that same mentality around exercise is medicine is becoming more and more at the forefront of everything that CrossFit is doing, and even Technogym is doing. So we see the whole shift of, we don't just work out to work out anymore. We really work out to prevent, or even as a part of healthcare.
I think that's a really nice balance for me, because my perception of CrossFit was with the culture that came with CrossFit, which was ego-driven, performance-driven, a little bit of, aggression and show off. And I think for me, it's really interesting to hear that there was an undercurrent that really was health based. So I think that's really kudos to them.
Yeah, and I think that image of soldiers, a bit almost, it works really well though. And I think it will be hard, and that's maybe why also these previous initiatives by CrossFit were not that successful, maybe even because it's not really 100% in line with how people live CrossFit today. Yeah. So I'm curious to see how that will, evolve in the future, and whether they will manage to link it more to healthcare. Because I agree with you. I mean, one of the issues with CrossFit is that if you compare it to, for example, a personal trainer, is that in my opinion, at least, CrossFit will push you a lot harder to even, beyond your own limits, while personal trainers don't do that. Personal trainers really listen to your limits, and they try to be very transformational in that regard, and won't push you that hard as if you were a soldier, indeed. Yeah.
It's not as good as Zumba, Aline.
Exactly.
But
agree.
It's a way forward. It's a way forward.
Exactly. But Christophe, I liked your comment about changing medicine for the gym, or the gym to become the new medicine. Because it reminded me of, I met a woman last week, and she has a longevity community. And she was saying that since she's part of that community, she's going to the gym every day diligently. And that's really part of working towards longevity. But she's consciously enjoying and doing exercise every day. So very aligned with that.
Yeah, there's more and more noise. I mean, I don't know the science behind it, but there's more and more noise that actually weightlifting and building muscle is more important than cardiovascular training.
Yes, true.
So let's see where that goes. But moving away from the gym, I think we talked about telehealth that CrossFit tried to do. I think you had some telehealth solutions as well, Aline, that you saw at 4 years from now.
Yeah, well, I saw monitoring solution. So it's a company called Shandax Guardian XK, and they have a solution to do precise vital signs monitoring powered by radar technology. So it's actually a sensor that goes either on the wall and you plug it with electricity, or it's a device that looks like a very elegant lamp that you put on your bed table. And it measures the micro vibrations from the body to track heart rate, respiratory rate, motion, and presence. And it can sense 0.1 millimeter changes per nanosecond. And it compares those information or those changes to the individual's baseline. So it's really personalized solution. It's non-invasive. You're not wearing any wearable, and that's actually the argument when you talk to them. And it can have different use cases, right? It can be put in hospitals, in nursing homes, or it can be at home. I found that I was actually attracted by their device. It looked like a nice lamp, elegant black, that you put on your bed table. Yeah, but very, very interesting solution. So they're already on the market. They're FDA approved.
The radar technology, or radar, I don't know how you say it, is actually the technology, I believe, that is used in self-driving cars. So till definitely in the beginning, all Tesla cars had radar technology to scan how the roads are filled with people or cars and whatsoever. So it's I didn't know that you could use that technology for measuring vitals as well.
No,
Yeah,
I find it was interesting.
Most of the cars use LiDAR, which is an evolution of that. And I wouldn't want to be in the diagnostic devices sector right now, big devices and things like that. And we're getting better at measuring the activity of life without being, as you said, invasive or requiring a lot of, I don't know. I think last year, Google said that through the eye, they could predict heart diseases, cardiovascular diseases, your affinity with cancer and things like that. So I think if you look at companies like GE or even Philips and things like that, I think diagnostic devices are in for a rough ride, maybe.
Yeah, and actually, I have to agree with you, Mo. I'm just checking things out. LiDAR is an advanced technology from radar, indeed. LiDAR is 3D and is used, if I look quickly on the internet here, is used in self-driving cars, and the radar is more 2D, but it's more robust for weather conditions. But it's both of them are passive sensors and not active sensors like cameras, which is a different technology. Thank you for correcting me there. You had another one, I think, Aline, you saw there, remote monitoring, or am I missing?
So I actually tried the Holobox by HoloConnect. So
you tried it?
Yes. Well,
you have a video of yourself.
Exactly. So yeah, there was a device when you could actually do an hologram of yourself. So I've got plenty of fun videos of my friends there. But it was really nice. It really looks like you, I think we are really evolving in the quality of those holograms. And that solution made me think of you guys, because we've talked about holograms several times in the show already. But also that company, HoloConnect, they're from Holland, and they are developing different solutions around hologram and digital humans. And the one solution that they were presenting at the conference was the Holobox for pharmacies. So it's a box that you install in a pharmacy with an AI-powered holographic pharmacist. So you scan, that's what we were doing there. We were scanning ourselves. We could be the pharmacist. The box can actually, or the hologram can answer patient questions about medication, dosage, side effects. And it also uses facial analytics to track the emotion in real time. So the hologram can adjust its tone and response based on the visitor's mood. And I found that very nice. And the goal of their solution is really to offer a faster service to customer. And they also have the idea of having a locker with medicine next to the hologram, with the possibility to deliver the medicine and to open one of the compartments after talking to the hologram. So really automatizing the whole process at the pharmacy.
Oh, that's lovely. That's really nice. I don't know if you remember, 2 years ago, I gave a keynote in the south of France. What's it? Université Santé?
Yeah,
that was it.
Université de la Santé.
And it was a closing keynote of the event, and it was about digital humans as healthcare providers.
Yep.
I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. Is it 3 years ago? It's maybe even 3 years ago.
Yeah, 3 years ago, yeah.
Might be 3 years ago. And I presented the idea of the Holobox as well there as a potential solution. So it's super nice to see that this is, we're only 3 years later, and it exists as a real solution in the Netherlands for, I wouldn't say replacing, but helping pharmacists in real life.
I think the Holobox is sitting on a very fertile soil, because a lot of the pharmacists also have robotics to go and fetch within the stock the box exactly that you want, or the product you already want. So I think it's a very good match between what we call the front end and the back end. And what I like about this fact is that most pharmacies are already organized for space optimization, and then the pharmacist just puts in and then they're robots, a bit like the Amazon sorting center. So a lot of pharmacies are already equipped to that. So just changing the front end is a very, very wise move. Yeah.
Yeah, and definitely because pharmacists are moving more towards the advisory role. At least some of them are looking into that space. And so if you can automate, the basic stuff, you free up humans to actually have more in-depth conversations. So might be very valuable indeed in that regard.
That was exactly the point, yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I'll make the perfect bridge here. I think we talked about virtual humans as healthcare providers, as you can do with the Holobox. But I'll go to China, where they are kicking off virtual doctors. And so remember, it's always an example in my keynotes as well. And you definitely heard about this 4 or 5 years ago. The Ping An Health, it's a solution from China, and they became popular or known in the Western world with their booths that they're having outside of the supermarkets. Now, on the one side, you go into a booth and you can have a conversation with a physician. You can even do some tests. And on the other side of the booth, there is a pharmacy where you can collect your medication. Remember that? So they've, launched that 4 or 5 years ago. They've had it now spread out over the country with, tens of thousands of those booths for virtual care. But they just recently launched an AI-powered doctor avatar. It's in their mobile health app, and it's a digital version of a real physician that can chat in real time with patients. So through text, through voice, through video. And so what it really means is that patients can interact 24/7 with AI-based avatars of top Chinese specialists. So not just your average physician even. The chatbot is called Xingji, I think. It's XINYI. And it, obviously offers personalized medication reminders, basic, so that you never miss a dose again. But it also helps you to interpret medical reports, so that you don't need to call for a physician or to that physician specifically, but it's the virtual doctor that will explain the reports to you. And it could even assist with consultations. So you have an immediate access to medical guidance at any time of the day. For now, it covers general practice, but it will soon expand into gynecology, pediatrics, surgery, dermatology, and even, and that I really like as well, traditional Chinese medicine. So that is very cool as well, is that they stick to what used to work there for quite a long time. And so they're not just chatbots, just to make it very clear. They are really in-depth AI virtual doctors. They're built on 3 layers of training, the medical expertise. So they have a massive database of 37,000 diseases. They are built on doctor-specific knowledge. So they've built insights from real doctors on social media, published research, clinical insights. There's a lot of training that went into that. And they were fine-tuned, of course, by the doctors themselves. So learning directly from their voice to have that emotional thing in there as well. I always say that, emotive AI will change digital health forever. I think this is one of the first things that we see here, is that these virtual doctors are trained on the voice, the image of the real doctor to actually be able to transmit that same emotion. And so I think why is it important? We often talk about AI-driven healthcare, that it will change. We always talk in terms of this would happen, of this should happen, or one day we will be able to. What we see with Ping An now is that they really are going into full-fledged modes, delivering almost near full accuracy and triage, assisted diagnosis. So this is lovely. And I think it's important for China because China has a shortage of physicians. It's hard to reach physicians there. And together with other initiatives like, the virtual care standards that they are putting out and the virtual hospitals that are putting out, I mean, this is one of the things that is really, I think, lovely. Telemedicine is evolving into real full-fledged virtual doctors, not just chatbots, real doctors. And this could radically reshape healthcare, not just in China, but globally. I liked it. I liked that one. When I saw this, I was like, oh, is this really happening? But the way that they described it, this is solid.
That's amazing.
I'll come back on that maybe later with something.
Okay. Very good. Very good. I'm through almost all of my health users, but I think I maybe have one. Mo, do you still have one?
Yeah. If you want to link emotion and trauma, maybe.
Okay.
It's interesting how we are all familiar with epigenetics. How the environment in which we operate does affect not the gene sequence, but the gene expression. And the fact that then we develop certain affinities with certain biological processes. Well, there's growing body of research indicating that traumatic experiences can also leave epigenetic marks that may be passed down generations. And why am I talking about that? Because if we see all the conflict there is in the world, we are not talking about Ukraine, and creating peace and solving, but that's not the end of the work. If we talk about Israel and Gaza and Syria and things like that. So we were thinking of how trauma can be passed on through generations. And it seems that trauma, these changes, these epigenetic changes are passed on to make sure that your children are equipped to face that trauma. But if you bring it closer to home, if you look at alcohol abuse, violence, family violence, and things like that, we've always been fascinated how alcohol abuse kind of sits in a generation and how people develop some affinities with that. Well, now they've known and they've understood that these epigenetic changes are passed on through generations. And that means that for us, it might redefine how we care about these communities that have been displaced, that have been traumatized, that have been exposed to stress. Now, there is a positive side to it too. Apparently, when you sit in a very good community and you're exposed to post-traumatic stress disorder, staying close together and forming a tight knit apparently helps you reset the impact of trauma on an epigenetic level. So what's really interesting is what people automatically do when they're in danger. They flock together. Well, that's also kind of a health reaction to the environment they are exposed to. So I think the main takeaways is that, we are clever in addressing trauma. We kind of pass it on so that our future generation might be better equipped to deal with that trauma. And we naturally behave in a way to sit together to also, and that was studied in the Turkana tribe in Africa by creating a close knit. And we also saw that in post 9/11, and the Asian communities, recovered or recuperated from that trauma really well because they formed a tighter knit, for instance. So main takeaways is we're quite clever. Our biology is quite clever, but lastly, when we say there is peace in a region, we might want to extend more empathy and more care for the future generations to make sure that it doesn't end just with negotiations. I think there is a level of care that we need to extend further on to make sure that we understand the impact on the long run that it has on a community. So that's my take on our biological intelligence, but also making sure that we act upon the knowledge and that we make sure that when the negotiations are over, we continue to care for these communities.
Yeah. Lovely one, and a very important one, definitely today. But I was thinking when you were talking, you said that we reset trauma by sitting together, by, living as a community, going back to the community. There's one other way that we can reset trauma, and I might refer to one of the next health users that I still had somewhere on the long list. What is another thing that we can do to reset trauma?
I think breathing, singing, music.
Think about something like a company. You were talking about community as a company.
Social media.
Which helps. No, pets.
Pets, of course.
That's true. Yeah.
Pets help with trauma as well. And the good news is that the FDA this week has acknowledged the potential of a beef-flavored pill that is designed to extend the healthy lifespan of aging dogs. So your dog can live 1 year longer very soon thanks to this pill. We talked about longevity and deferring the aging process a couple of times during this podcast already. It's one of the biggest, hottest things in healthcare and health in general. But what is very interesting as well these days is that the way that people go about their health, the healthusiasm that they have for their health, they also have for the health of their pets. You can't imagine how many times I'm asked for expert interviews with companies that are focused on pet health and pet food and what have you, to see how the healthusiasm could be applied there as well. And so now we have the biotech startup Loyal. How lovely. What a lovely name for a dog food company or dog medicine pharmaceutical company. They have discovered a new compound that really could help dogs to live longer. And obviously that will have some consequences for humans as well, because what we will learn there will probably be transmitted to humans at some point for sure.
Beautiful.
Yeah, indeed.
But it's true, at some conferences, like especially in the US, you have some put just a corner with pets, normally dogs, and you can just go there and have a reset. When you stress. I know I have a friend, she was going there like a few times during the day to pet the dogs, and that was helping her to release the stress and to calm down, in the busy conference. I think that's an amazing thing to do.
Yeah, and equine therapy. It seems that horses have 4 times higher ability to sense whatever is going on with you. And I've heard stories of things that are just transformational. And thinking of that, you just did 4 years from now, Aline.
Yeah.
There was no presence of pet health and the interaction of animals on the effect. Were there any initiatives there?
I don't think so. I didn't see any, but it's also quite big, so I didn't see everything.
So that's maybe a reach out to 4 years from now.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Because it's coming more and more, that's for sure. Well, thank you for all these health enthusiasms. I have a couple of unusual ones still for you to close this session today. I'll start with you, Mo. Do you know Opera as a web browser?
Yeah, used to know it.
Okay.
It was a white icon with a red O, I think.
Yeah, I know it because my son always says, "Are you still on Google?" You need to go to Opera. It's way more, performant, etc. Actually, I'm still on Google. But there's something specific now with Opera. They changed a couple of things. They have a version which is called Opera Air. And so what did they change that it is worthwhile mentioning here in the Health Enthusiasm podcast?
Maybe the servers Opera is working on is cleaning air or purifying air. I don't know.
No, don't get confused with the air. It has nothing to do with air specifically. But no, not really.
No.
Any idea, Aline?
Maybe they track what you are doing and they tell you to have a break or.
Exactly. So they have 2 things. They have take a break and boosts. So basically they provide guided relaxation sessions, which include breathing exercises, meditation that last between 3 to 15 minutes. And they do so based on your activity, which kind of makes sense, right? We have it in our phones. We have it. So why not in the browser? And they also have they can generate binaural beats. So certain tones that play in each ear to influence your mental state, basically, to help you be more focused, to help you have more creativity, or even be more relaxed. So they really changed their interface to help you with these 2, what they call key wellness features. It's a good one. And then another one, I've read it somewhere, and I'm not quite sure whether I already mentioned it here in the podcast. I'm not sure. Soft wellness. It is taking over, they say, other parts of wellness. But what is soft wellness? And it refers a little bit back to what we said earlier as well. Do you know what it is, Aline? Or what it could be?
Maybe we talked about it, but I don't remember. And I have
me neither.
No idea.
maybe it's just sound and smell. Something that just...
No, it goes a little bit back to what you said with the trauma response and so forth. It's actually, it's a wonderful, unusual health enthusiasm because we talked about fitness. We talked about, going all in and working very hard and 30% increase of impact and the impact that you can have on aging. We also talked about, the importance of community when you were talking about trauma more. Well, soft wellness is actually the movement where we think about working on your health and your wellness that is not focused on peak performance or growing, but is more focused on the joyful moments that you have with others. It's about community over competition, basically. So it's more about, let's run together. Let's go for a run together instead of let's just run the marathon. It's that kind of mentality. It's a shift in wellness that people see where it's more on, let's do this together and enjoy it than anything else. And saw a campaign by, who was it again? I think it was Adidas, no, On's, the new sneaker On has a soft win campaign, which just says, every step forwards or every step you do is, better than no step. So it's not about, running the marathon. If you already run a little bit, it's already good. And Adidas also had the You Got This campaign, which is a lot about self-acceptance and over self-optimization, let's say. So this whole, I call it in my book the moderation moderation aspiration or aspiration moderation, where people don't, when you think about becoming the best version of yourself, it doesn't need to be that you need to become better. Sometimes good is good enough, and that is the best version that you need to have right now.
Yeah, very good point. And people listening to the podcast will know that I'm an incredible fan of Alan Langer. And you don't need to do as much. I think there's an inefficiency. So for instance, when I see people in the fitness looking at screens or listening to podcasts, they do not know that they're underachieving the regular performance of what they're putting into it. So basically,
that's okay.
Yeah. But basically, when you do things and you're fully aware of what you do think and you really live what you do, you have even bigger outcomes and bigger results.
You mean the mindfulness about it?
Yeah, the mindfulness of
yeah, I agree.
For instance, every time I get up out of the couch, which is often because I'm often in the couch, I kind of, tense my core and perceive it as an exercise. When I do the stairs, it's the same. And kudos to Ellen Langer, who did that experiment with maids who thought they weren't working out. And then she just showed them that when they were doing a bed, they were doing the equivalent of an exercise, and they started losing weight without changing anything about their nutrition and things like that. So yeah. I welcome that.
Yeah. And I think everything that is mindful is becoming more and more important. Also in eating, by the way. Mindful eating is one of the trends that is coming up real quick right now.
Actually, Christophe, when you were sharing that health enthusiasm, it reminded me of the half marathon that was in Barcelona a few weeks ago. So my friend was running, so I went there to cheer her up. And what I remember from that day, what I liked was actually seeing, so we were close to the end of the course, so people have done like 20 something kilometers, and see some runners cheering others, stopping to finish the last miles with some people. And for me, that was the most amazing. And I think it goes well with what you just said. It's not just about me finishing the half marathon, but going with the others. There was a sense of community that I found amazing in that course.
It shifted from I've run it under 2 hours to I finished it together with my
exactly.
friends.
Exactly. It was beautiful.
Which is lovely. Okay, that's it for the unusual ones. Unless, Mo, you still have one very unusual one, I think.
Yeah, maybe I have one unusual one. Yeah, let's give it a go and see whether or not it is unusual. I would like to put a statement out there, and we might be going
that's something new.
Yeah. Sometimes I go out on a limb, sometimes I take a risk. Aline, I'll ask that to you. The expression, maybe AI needs a session on the couch. What would that mean?
So it's funny because someone mentioned it this week around the conference.
I've read it, so I know. Yeah.
When AI is going out of control?
Yeah, very good. It seems AI can be stressed, and of course AI cannot have emotions, right? But we were talking about AI emotions. And as you were talking about physicians that help people, about pharmacies who have holograms, who address people, who can do facial recognition. Well, the problem is AI isn't a static model, and AI feeds on everything that it gets. So it's a dynamic model. Christophe, you were talking about Xinji, I think. So basically, it seems that as AI is exposed to more troublesome news, it gets stressed out. And it might need an emotional reset to be able to react in a consistent way for people showing despair or distressed situations. So as a physician, at the end of the day, you're tired of hearing your patients complain, right? And your last reaction might not be as good as your first. It seems that AI also mimics that stress as it is exposed to more troublesome news, and that troublesome news becomes more and more important. Its responses might change. So there is now a study in Switzerland who is making us aware of that, and that sometimes you might need to reset. Maybe the AI needs to go for a walk. Maybe the AI needs a pet, maybe the AI needs a therapy session. So Thomas Spiller at the University of Zurich is tackling that unique challenge. And especially with AI agents or AI models that help people with mental health, it could kind of backfire, where the AI, as it gets more exposed to it, gets worse at reaction, and that they are working on a model to make sure that the reactions are always valuable and consistent, right? So consistency in AI behavior makes it more reliable, particularly when you need to provide support in sensitive areas such as mental health. Maybe that could lead to AI that are not only technically proficient, but also better equipped at being exposed to more troublesome situations.
But very much needed. Very nice one.
I've noticed that, so I have a ChatGPT, which is fed with all the health enthusiasms that I put out there, my book, my newsletters, and so forth. So that one is trained. And so I know that it will answer, and it's a way to reflect upon all the health enthusiasm work that I do. But what I noticed is that my general GPT knows now that I'm doing health enthusiasm, and that all the previous questions that I asked it, even for food and the dinners that I want to make in the evening, it remembers it. And so it really starts talking to me with all the previous knowledge that it had. So it kind of makes sense that if you always ask these negativity loaded questions to ChatGPT, that it kind of creates, it's a bit like your feed on social media. If you always, let's say like political posts which are very leftish, you will only see leftish relevant content. And so I was a bit shocked to realize that ChatGPT is I think Google search is more neutral. If you ask it a question, or if you do a search, you get, a list of answers or a list of websites that you can go through yourself, and it's based on popularity of websites and the way that the website is structured. But it's not really, or I think at least, less based on your previous search. I think it doesn't feel that way, at least. But now with ChatGPT, this is really based on everything that you've done in the past. And I talk about it in my second book as well. We have the echo chambers in social media where your feed is optimized based on what you liked previously. And I said that we have a risk of going into echo persona, where these personal assistants and ChatGPTs become really a sort of mirror of yourself, and you only hear yourself talking. But I saw that as something which is going to happen in the future, where we have these very personal assistants. ChatGPT seems something very general like Google search, but it is already an echo persona almost. And I was very shocked to hear about that, to be honest, and to notice that in my own GPT, or in my own GPT work that I do.
Yeah, there's two dimensions to it. It's what the system gets fed, the algorithm, but also how the system is tweaked at the base, at the engineer. Do a simple exercise and do it. Google white couple, right? You will get white couple, but you will also get mixed couple, so that diversity is represented.
If you Google search this.
If you Google search white couple, right, you will get men and women, gay and things like that. Diversity is engineered in that search. But if you do black couple, you will only get black couples, because it's more sensitive when you Google white couple to not show diversity. But if you do black couple, you just only see black couple, because the sensitivities there are maybe a bit less. So I think there's two dimensions: is how the system is engineered to be ethical, I think. Secondly, how it is fed and how the algorithm is there. So I think AI cannot escape that.
Yeah, but it really made me think about, I often have that thing on social media as well. If I'm on Instagram, I deliberately follow people that I disagree with. Honestly, because I want to have that other opinion. And also because I want my feed to be totally, not always the same things that I like. Because it's hard. You cannot refresh your feed.
Yeah.
And so I like that idea of having, GPT on a couch to, refresh its memory and start from zero again. Because, or at least partially, but hopefully maybe even fully. Why not? There should be like a very neutral GPT source.
Good point. Yeah.
How to do that? Even social media. I would love to have a
reset button.
See different things. I think that would be a great health enthusiasm.
Yeah.
But even so kind of mental health, no? Because if we are in a negative mindset and we talk to people who are negative, it will just feed that mindset. But if we're talking to a GPT who can actually be the reverse and be more positive to impact our mindset, that would be amazing.
Well, we discussed that, Aline, on how mental health is contagious.
Yeah, exactly.
Through the microbiome,
exactly.
That study in Finland.
Yeah.
So I think there's also maybe a technological microbiome that influences us.
Lovely.
Maybe that's a good one for your keynote. Maybe we are creating our own technological microbiome that kind of influences us. But anyway, thank God that people who want different things can come to us on the Healthusiasm podcast, and we'll trigger their feed and make sure that they get the regular resets to challenge their beliefs.
Yes, indeed. And thank you both for all your healthusiasm. This was a lovely discussion, and we are moving, nevertheless, towards a more healthusiasm world indeed. We see a lot of positive changes that are making our world healthier and happier every day. Thank you for listening, everyone. If you like the show, hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. You can also visit healthusiasm.com to subscribe to the newsletter and learn more about our panelists. For now, I'd like to thank both of our panelists for their healthusiasm. Thank you, Aline Noizet and Zouina. My name is Christophe Jauquet. We are the Healthusiasm panel, and we'd love to see you again next week for some more healthusiasm. Ciao.